Shirley here with Sirius Stellus Moon, and we have Mercury hour Sol day. Sun is 11 degrees Leo, and Mercury is 7 degrees Leo retrograde, ruling both ascendant and midheaven. The Moon is in Scorpio, an heretic degree, really about to ingress into Sagittarius, and with that, oppose Uranus. So, one of my favorite for a Moon Uranus was actually the eurekas that we have, and this time it came about regarding care, um, care and war and medical welfare and the misuse of things. Yes, because the moon is applying to trine Saturn and Neptune and sextile Pluto, but then it's always U3 opposed Uranus. Um, We are about to have a moon ruled by Jupiter, which is 12 degrees Cancer. Lovely, lovely time. We might even get an election for Jupiter talisman on a Jupiter hour, but today is a Sol day, so that might be more towards the evening, okay? The evening, which is the night of Jupiter. And I have a little bit of an energy reading for you. So, as always with those, just like with anything, whether it's a medical advice by a certified doctor, or a reading by an anonymous YouTuber or not anonymous YouTuber, or an astrological reading, if you find that useful for you, amazing. If not, there's plenty of other content out there. And what I am the energies that I came into contact with have to do with some of you have been exhausting those who came to exhaust you. Now, if you go to the praxis of how do people actually gain their sovereignty, okay, with Saturn in Aries, it's a tedious process, because what do they gain their sovereignty from? Okay, let's talk about the Soviet Union, because that is a great example for the Saturn Neptune. And so the Soviet Union, it worked in a way that was all encompassing and you couldn't get away from. Okay, it was from cradle to grave. There were good things about it. There was a sense of community. There was a housing for everyone. Okay, so there were definitely things that kept people together, and yet sovereignty, individual sovereignty, indeed was missing. Okay, when the money ran out, that community no longer held, and the reason the money ran out had to do with corruption in the supposedly communistic regime. And then when you ask, how did nations begin to gain sovereignty from those? And I was listening to Elvira. Elvira was born in Soviet Russia and got out of there. And she said that after the fall of the Soviet Union, what we are taught, okay, by Masons that believe that not everybody can be free, is that people had a hard time getting used to freedom. Okay, that they were like the elephant, the elephant that is no longer tied. But what Elvira tells from her own testimony as a person that lived through that was that there began to be all kinds of initiations, um, community hospitals, finding cure for cancer, a lot of things in favor of humanity, okay? And development, the scientific development, many, many good things. And they began to be oppressed by the Russian regime. So we're talking at the aftermath of Gorbachev. And but when you go to the countries that gained sovereignty from the USSR, you think about the fact that they were going through a tedious fight where they were basically Their mission was to exhaust those who come to exhaust them. And the fact that the building exhaustion is a part of a cult tactic. It's trying to build a situation where people, by exhaustion, will give up and um, adopt certain things that are not in their best interest. And the way that people basically got sovereignty from the Soviet Union, the many countries that got sovereignty from the Soviet Union, um, basically had to exhaust those who came to exhaust them. This is why Declaration of Independence is so important. If you think about Palestine under Hamas, the ruler of the people that is in detriment, Moon in Capricorn, it's Saturn ruled. This is a position that exhausts the people internally by their own representatives, supposedly in the face of oppression, okay, so to speak, whether it's by Israel, by NATO, by Great Britain, by Turkey, by Qatar, okay, many things. But the fact that they had the moon in Capricorn, it means that there was a grand delay and tremendous exhaustion of the people in the face of Hamas, which delayed further their ability to exhaust the people that came to exhaust them, more so than to liberate them. Okay, if let's say if the people, I wish for nobody oppression, but if you need a representation and liberation, I wish for you that those who come to liberate you will not be people who practice ritual human sacrifice and make every battle scene look and feel like a place that is hell on earth. Okay, like if that's because that is not liberating. That is basically the terror under which Palestinians were living with, and the Israeli side was just getting a little bit of a snippet of the life of a Palestinian under Hamas regime each and every day, or under Muslim Brotherhood of Satan regime, so to speak. Um, and so when we talk about um, why did it take so long for the Palestinian people to exhaust those who came to exhaust them, is because they were undergoing that much terror internally before we even get to the other things. Now, the methods have to do with MK Ultra. Okay, there are even people that testified and survived CIA tunnels. So that is way more global that people would like to address and understand, um, and taking it back to the Soviet Union, the people that began to gain sovereignty, which is the process. Saturn Aries is the process, the tedious process of gaining sovereignty, which entail and this is where many of you are finding this message, because many of you are going through the process of exhausting that which came to exhaust you and to drain your energy. Now, this is basically leaving a cult. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. A pack of countries and nationalities began to leave a cult. A big giant cult that became oppressive to them and exhausted them in the process. So many of you are meeting that, um, meeting the situation where, with Mars applying to oppose Saturn Neptune, which it rules, it basically means that it's one of the things that this situation could describe is that very notion of the rulers who instill the oppressive or want to instill an oppressive structure are using exhaustion tactics, and one has to exhaust those who come to do that and regain their sovereignty. Now Mars is already trining Pluto, and Saturn Neptune is sextiling Pluto. So what we are unraveling is the Plutonian structure, the occult, um, occult, psyop, um, social engineering, because the politics of the nervous system, the politics of using science and technology that is hidden from the public, and using psychiatric tagging, Neptune, for those who try to break free. And what many of you are undergoing is to exhaust the very systems and structures of that cult, and thus gain your sovereignty. Now, you think about the cult built from individuals. So let's say, many people that have that were responsible to spread something that caused heart rate issues, okay, heart health issues. Many of them are already at the age where a heart condition is either existing or could be existing. Now, many people that did human trade, think about it, people that used the systems that they were in to trade and traffic, eventually they would need to go, let's say, to hospital, or they would need care. This is the moon here. And if they come to that situation, and half of the nurses are students that were trafficked, and half of whether it's in the psych ward or it's in the hospital, okay, if a person goes through something like a heart condition, it is also a trauma, so they need trauma care also for their psychological well-being. And they would need to meet the psychologists and psychiatrists that decide if they can have a driving license. Some of those were kidnapped and trafficked by cars that when they had no license, or were under threats of the cars that kept coming and okay. So there is a certain trajectory, there's a certain expiration date to the actions that people's, like, you can corrupt a city, but if you've corrupted the entire country, then you can go abroad, but but if you've corrupted the entire continent, okay, then you can go to another continent, but if you've corrupted the entire world, then you are becoming a victim of your own corruption. And that is the point here. So for many of you, you are standing in the face of something that looks like a megalithic corrupt system, but it's basically about to cross the threshold, and you are successfully exhausting those who came to exhaust you. There was a satire by an Israeli comedian, and yes, it went like this. He served in the IDF, and then he went 1 hour earlier. It was caught on camera. And so his commander says to him, listen, we got you on tape. You left, you were supposed to leave at 5, you left at 4 p.m. And he said, I didn't. And then the commander said, we got this on camera. I don't know what you see, what you didn't see. I went in 5. We have the clock. You clocked out 4 a.m., 4 p.m. I don't know what you see. I don't know what you have. I don't know what you don't have. I went out in 5. Ehud Miller, Müller, Adir Miller. Okay. Okay. So now, just the fact that this was a very documentary, that's the way people had to do with the IDF, with the military structure. If they wanted to get their rights met, they had to act like this. Okay? So it's kind of like that soldier in that system knew that if he will ask to leave 1 hour earlier, nobody's going to care about whatever the reason, and so it's like it's not going to get consideration. So he started to gaslight the gaslighters, and and many of you are in such positions where people try to play that card like you are the commander, but you are commander of no army. So what comes up is that those who try to exhaust you with all kinds of irrational things are reminded that they themselves need the system to have some sort of a rational. When the system is completely irrational, they will be the victims of that irrationality as well. And so, because we have a Soviet Union dissolution type of uh, transit or type of skies, then the actual energies of many of you being in the position where you are successfully exhausting anything and everybody that try to exhaust you. You don't act like they expect you to act, because you already seen that acting in a way that a normal person would respond to corruption does not yield the end of corruption. Okay, so let's say you're a tenant and somebody tried to traffic you. Okay, naturally you're not going to continue to pay the rent. I mean, if the landowner tried to traffic you in the apartment that you rented, then you get the fuck out of there, which would immediately and abruptly halt all payments towards traffickers that later money launder that to basically commit terror attacks. And definitely what you are going to do is to notify all the real estate regulation, the taxes regulation, the bank, okay, the security systems, that you have identified money laundering, because that's what they care about. Okay, it's money coming in for if they take the human trafficker. And what you've made is basically exhaust the people that come to exhaust you. And when they try to send people to you or they try to film you, then you do them, you do them Hollandier, because what was the case of Hollandier was criminal, and Peter R. de Vries, who was tending to true crime, took a picture of Hollandier having a vacay in a place where in Europe it was supposedly a violation of privacy, but so is crime. Okay, so many of you are exactly in those positions where you are You are basically exhausting the means that are used against your sovereignty and freedom. And you're making it not economic. How was colonialism decolonized? And it happened by a tedious process of making colonialism not economic. How were a lot of the during COVID, okay, when they tried to enforce irrational things supposedly in the name of people's security or health, okay, how did people combat that? Masses of people, let's say they got a fine, okay, so masses of people began to appeal against that, and they used the very bureaucracy that was used to exhaust them to exhaust the bureaucracy. This is how Israelis got a fine canceled when they became a Pfizer lab rat. Then imagine what Palestinians had to do with Hamas and Israel. Now, why do we say as Israel? Because even if you have a blue ID, during COVID, you were under oppression. And COVID is, of course, not Israel, is MK Ultra, but Israel did not stop it. It did not stand 10 toes down and say, in this country, we don't allow that. Not to the degree that people did not suffer COVID crisis. And so Saturn Neptune can also symbolize that the dissolution is not just from a Soviet Union, but a type of global health structure. Because Saturn is structure and Neptune is hospitals and health system. Also mafia. Okay, Neptune is also mafia. Okay, so you think about it. How do people exhaust those who come to exhaust them? Basically, first of all, it's the steps to make it not economic. There are people in Israel that say, I will not pay protection. It's like I'm paying to Hamas from within the country. It's not helping Palestinians. Ask what will help Palestinians. A lot of them would, was a blue ID. And he is an Israeli ID. That one was, okay. It's like, we don't want to be under Muslim Brotherhood of Satan anymore. But then we would have to kick off the Templars as well. And so for many of you, you are effectively exhausting the people that came to exhaust you, which basically means you are opening the door to exit a megalithic cult. That was what gaining sovereignty from Soviet Russia was. So it was done before. It was done before under disguise. And now we have a lot of countries calling to individuate from the WHO, from Davos. With Klaus Schwab was litigated for sexual abuse, harassment, I don't know. So people are definitely, if you think about World Economic Forum, this is Neptune wealth. So this Saturn is very involved in that. This is why they sound like communists, okay, that you will own nothing and be happy. And because they're using the Saturn Neptune to get worldwide wealth or stealth wealth, but still, it's kind of like if your stealth wealth is all over the place, then and all of it belongs to you and everybody's supposed to own nothing and be happy, then it's kind of visible. It's kind of so, and this is where the common people begin to exhaust those who came to exhaust them, and many of you, um, whichever is your trajectory, okay, whether you're a Palestinian family that is refugee in Europe, or Ukrainian, or you escaped Russia, or you escaped into Russia, or I don't know where are you listening to this from, or who are you, but for many of you, the energy, the vibe is that you have successfully exhausted those who came to exhaust you. All of their cards, all of their tactics, all of their, from guilt trips to psyops to threats to this to that, all of them, basically, you reminded them of their mortality. And it doesn't mean that you threatened their life, it just means that you reminded them of their mortality. You reminded them that if they try to, if they think about housing, so they want to think very well about what type of housing setting are they thinking to put you in, because whether it's under whichever guise, they will be subjected to the same treatment. It's kind of like Stalin and the doctors, okay? Stalin had no doctor, because he fired all the good doctors. Now, I don't know if he fired all the good doctors because the supposedly good doctors were cooperating with the WHO, and then he didn't have a doctor because some global thing was murdering the doctors, or he was responsible for the murder of actual genuine doctors. But at the end of the day, he did not have a doctor, okay? And so, you know, if you traffic students, then some of them will end up in the healthcare system. If you traffic, if you're a commander and you traffic your soldiers, this also happened in the IDF, by the way. It's all a documentary in academia and in the IDF. It's a documentary. The IDF had cases of trafficking soldiers, okay, including in jail systems. Like, you have lawyers like Kwani Sadovnikoloni that tended to these cases and their exposure. And she's Zionist, but she still tended to that, because that was like, you know, beyond any ideology. And we understand that the IDF that does that later tries to invade Gaza and looks like a feminization, humiliation ritual of the Muslim Brotherhood of Satan. And that looks bad. Now, of course, not all soldiers, but it's enough that that existed in the IDF and exists in the IDF, that then in 7th October, when people were ritually abused by Hamas, they were asking, where was that IDF for 12 hours? Busy trafficking soldiers, perhaps. So for many of you, while many of you are the ones who are busy exhausting those who came to exhaust you, there are others, and those others are the ones that are busy trying to use the same exhaustion called tactics, that are outdated tactics, to preserve a certain outdated and expired supposed power that they even no longer want. It's not, you know, if you think about, just like nobody wants to be trafficked, okay, being a trafficker is not like a job where, it's not a dream job. If you think about even mob bosses, okay, You think about this. You think about couples that have the nicest pictures of in Instagram. There are some of them are happy couples, but many of them are happy couples for the camera. And again, without judging, okay? You think about the pictures of the mob boss with the nice suit and the cigar and so on. What you don't see is the shaking bones underneath. And that's a life of, and those of them that are members in secret societies, it doesn't do good for bone marrow. Saturn rules bones and stress. So to go swimming is great for bone marrow. But to, okay, live a life where you're reliant on an income that is basically slavery and oppression because it's human trafficking, that is not, okay, that is, the 12th house and the 6th house are to do with the mental and the physical health, but are also to do with your immediate employees. And when you're a bigger organization, with the, let's say Amazon, the Amazon employees would be the 12th house of Jeff Bezos. That means that he's not feeling very well psychologically, is what I'm saying. Okay. Not doing very well, not extremely happy, and there's only that much, and eventually if the drugs that he needs to be happy have an expiration date as well, for how, you know, the way the drugs work with the brain is that the brain becomes desensitized to that. So um, so again, and it's not about judgment or blame. It's just the notion that certain structures have an expiration date, and many of you are a part of being that expiration date, being a living, walking talisman of an expiration date to corruption. Okay, while others are sensing the dissolution of the outdated structure that no longer serve. Okay, you could do a communist regime, but if you money launder and make a lot of money going missing, okay, then eventually the corruption will exceed the wealth redistribution. Okay, so the Soviet Union failed not because it was um, not because they didn't do good things, but because the corruption exceeded. And that's the same with capitalism. Capitalism can be a great idea when the corruption doesn't exceed, okay, the individual capital. Um, okay, if you, let's just say, I bless you to never have to be reliant on income from oppression on either side. And that is, okay, for example, in Israel, we have during Golda Meir days, she was incredibly racist and so on, and yes, all the things are true. And she made this system where people would anyway have money to live, even if they are bullied at work, so to speak. So many people wanted to close that because they thought that the people that were expelled from the working sector by bullies protection human traffickers and human traders and cult-like management and working environment are the people that live on their account. um, I think there isn't a single Israeli citizen who does not need welfare right now, in any way, shape, and form. And it's the very people that wanted to close the welfare, to close any income that came from those systems. And which reminds us again that when we want to dissolve a system, we would need to replace it with a better system. In Aries, the word sovereignty is key. Because the alternative is that Saturn Neptune will show us how the system that we are trying to create is actually not. Okay, because what happened during the 1990s, there was a Saturn Neptune cycle. Where it could end is the Soviet Union expanding itself and becoming global. That was an option with the Saturn Neptune. So a lot of structures are at the verdict of, are they going to be expanding or are they going to be dissolving? Something needs to dissolve so that the structure can live on, expand, rebuild, and so on. And so let's say you want to replace the government. The government is corrupt. You want to replace it. Fantastic. But let's say that you fund your revolution by trafficking children. And creating a betrayal cult between men and women that are parents and traffic those children, their own children even. Are you a good replacement to the government? Is the world that you're creating a better world? Now, let's say you think to create a union with the same outdated structures and say, I'll gain some, you'll gain some, we'll all gain some, and we'll stay existing. Remember Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln, he had slaves. He very likely participated in trafficking children, very likely participated in Epstein-like scandals as well. But what in the right of a slave lover that he had, okay, he understood that the Civil War, those who rely on slavery, even if they grow food, don't have the competitive advantage. Those that rely on developing technology, whether agrarian or not, have more competitive advantage and ability to dissolve, okay, slavery. Those that rely on slavery for their economy basically lost the war, okay, lost the Civil War. Ford, okay, there was a grand fiasco with Ford because there was the blue collar rebel, the blue uniform. If you think about 1st of May, you should be wearing blue, not red, because this was the workers' union that was wearing blue to fight oppression, okay? And Ford thought that he could exterminate them. You almost exterminated Ford thinking that. Now, if you take human trafficking, you basically take something that is human connection and you make of it a Ford-like structure. Okay? So first of all, the clients are not happy. You can drive a Ford car, but when it comes to a human being, people want actual human connection. And the clients that are happy with that, the reason that they get to that trafficked person is so that information will be taken from them that will be used for their political assassination. Basically, it means that you are the enemy of your clients if you are a human trafficker, and this is how people like Detru and Epstein and Tate get exposed. They're basically running an extortion cult that will end in political assassination. They also have a key role, people like Epstein, I don't know what the rest, have a key role in laundering money. Actually, Andrew Tate raised awareness to the public of what the government does against money laundering and how that can be used against each and every citizen. It was a very smart move by him because he was not wrong. Okay, that's the social credit score. Now, in his case, he was a human trafficker. And this is why I say many of you are exhausting what came to exhaust you. And so the people that came to exhaust you so that you will participate in cult-like structures become very exhausted. Let's give it a moon Jupiter. I knew it. This is the exact opposition, moon hour. Yes. And ascendant conjoining Mars. That's the thing. First, people, when people try to expand it, now, why do people try to expand the structures to begin with? Because these are self-consuming structures. I don't want to say cancer, but this is how cancer cells work. Okay. Okay, it's a self-consuming structure, and so they need more things to think about. Colonialism is a result of a cult-like structure because it is self-consuming, and then you need to have more idiots. Okay, so so you need to dumbify more people, and people will only be dummified so much. And that has an expiration date, and expansion itself has a limit. So this is how how those cult-like structures expire. It's also how people that deal with cancer. Okay, what is the act of recovery? It's self-care to exhaustion of what comes to. Okay, it's basically an anomaly of natural growth where the growth of the person is suppressed, and what grows is actually not in favor of the person. So the antidote is to grow what is favorable for the person, okay, whether it's food, whether it's relation, whether it's anything to do with, whatever is nourishing for the person, and at the same time not feed the overgrowth of cancer cells. So the people that are dealing with the disease, so to speak, many of them are going through the tedious job of exhausting what came to exhaust them. By the way, even stuffs like toenail fungi that you're marketed is an aesthetic problem. No, it is not. It is, in many cases, a type of candida, which is a type of stagnation that happens where, in the places where the growth of the person is oppressed and the access to what is actually nourishing for the person is oppressed. So that creates a situation where a person has to nourish themselves and not the fungi. What do we put on toenail fungi? Stuff like grapefruit seeds extract, which we can also consume. So to the person is healthy, but to the fungi not. Essential oils, again, to the person is healthy, to the fungi not. Cinnamon, okay, it has that sweetness that to the person is healthy, and it balances the sugar levels, so to the fungi is not nourishing. What is being nourished by your stagnation, oppression, is basically slowly being starved, and it tries to convince you to eat things that you, this is what candida does, okay, it tries to convince you to overeat on sugars. So that means that not only you need nourishing food, it's not like eat your greens, don't eat sugar. No, you need access to the actually nourishing food that nullifies, whether it's stuff like cinnamon, essential oils, grapefruit extract, actually nourishing food. And then all the stagnant structures that are meant to keep you malnourished. Did you know that in most places when you go to hospital, let's say psychiatric, okay, the food is causing inflammation, which causes stuff like bipolar disease, depression, and that's the taxes of people. They're not actually given the food that is anti-inflammatory, and in addition they're given stuff that is causing delay in absorption and interference in the absorption of minerals. So they're becoming craving sugars, craving food, not being satiated while not actually having food, which means that they are basically being assassinated with their own taxes. Everybody knows that. Class lawsuits upon class lawsuits. But for many of you that are battling certain diseases that you've been told that are not related, oh, the fungi, oh, the toenail, oh, it's nothing. It looks bad, but it's nothing. That can cause stagnation that can contribute to growth of cancer cells. So what would you say about the people that are participating in the systems that oppress people? Particularly in the name of medicine. Yes, the trine to the Saturn Neptune is evident with this one. And look how he talked about Cancer the minute it turned to be a Jupiter-ruled moon, because the moon is can have to do with cancer cells, and Jupiter is growth. So we talked about anomaly of cancer cells growth. Okay, cancer, what we call the disease cancer, is basically an anomaly in cancer cells growth. There are cancer cells all the time. Same with Candida. Um, it is actually the anomaly in the growth that is considered the disease. Um, so most of the diseases that are even associated with psychiatric conditions are basically anomalies in cell rejuvenation and processes that are interlinked with those. And yes, I'm a certified aromatherapist. I had to study both the physical facet and the other, facets that are to do with health conditions. So this is definitely something that I'm certified to discuss. Bad gateway, bad gate. You very bad gate. So back to we the people. Um, I hope that this presentation gave you a little bit of more of an assessment. I know it's not the usual energy reading. Okay. This is your academically trained in way too many things person that also has certifications in applied sciences. Um, Gives you an energy reading. Like, so this is not me breaking the market of energy reading. It's kind of like describe overqualified. um, so, by the way, many of the people that you think that they do not have the certification, they got it through those energy readings. Even when I did my degree and my thesis proposal and my essays and so on, usually I had like a gut feeling, and then I would have the idea, and then I would go and Google and see and do the scientific processing of whether I was correct or not correct, or that needed refinement or whatnot. But and this is also how I got to channeling, because it's kind of like, hey, there's something. If I'm authentic about the scientific process, I understand there's a lot of gut feelings, channeling, eurekas, dream state. Like I had a colleague that woke up with a dream about an equation, and they looked into natural disasters. Okay, um, so only to find out. Okay, but those things play a part in science uh, so much that it's inauthentic scientifically not to discuss them as a part of the scientific process of argumentation. So a lot of the people that don't have certification at all have those gut feelings and energy processing. They might not know to call it in the right terminology or in the right name, or they might not speak in academic terms, but they absolutely have information that is as valid as evidence-based medicine when you get into the nitty-gritties of the ANOVA model and evidence-based medicine, or even science-based medicine. Then you understand that the best doctors are kind of like a little bit psychics, um, and that psychics have a lot to offer. So any energy reading person could have made the same, gotten to the same information that I provide by research. Um, and it's and eventually going back to Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries, Chiron in Aries, it is the age where people are called in to be their own doctors. A good doctor will love a patient that is sovereign. A good doctor will love a patient that if they have a certain condition, they themselves look into what are the possible things that could create that, while not going, into paranoia about it, but also not going into complete ignorance about situations, because that would really assist the doctor in receiving information from the most competent source around the patient, which is the patient. Now, it's also true to consider the fact that, let's say, you suffer from something, some condition, and you don't remember everything, then having a person that lives next to you and says, okay, that person also experiences this and that and that and that and that, when it's not misconstrued, then that can absolutely be assisting. And yet, the person who needs to be satisfied with the medical procedure and the outcome is the patient. And, and that's the thing with the medical science. It's supposed to serve the patient. Okay. And so um, and that's just not something we can, you know detour without having drastic implications, because every person is a patient at some stage in their lives. um, so so that's the thing to consider. um, Yes, a lot of medical issues discussed because of the skies, the energies. Okay, if medical warfare is used against people, there is a mass awakening of people to being their own doctors. But it also stands in the faces of corruption, of financial violence, um, who is able to participate in trade. Okay, all of those things. So um, it simply put, people are exhausting the systems that came to exhaust them. And if that is you, then you understand that perhaps a historical perspective of the dissolution of the Soviet Union is what you're dealing with, and this is why it seems like a tedious battle. If you ask yourself, why are people so invested in something so idiotic as to try to oppress people? Well, first of all, they grew up into a certain type of irrationality where this is the rationale. They're not to blame for that, but it's also not something that can continue to consume itself, and you're not to be consumed by that either. Um, so this is the why, and this is also why you seem to be dealing with plenty irrational forces that seem to be so invested in something that is so unyielding, and the more that they're invested in your oppression or exhaustion, the more that they get exhausted. Okay, because it's very exhausting to oppress. It's incredibly exhausting to enslave. It is energy draining to siphon on other people's energy, and it is incredibly haunting to be predatory. And so what we have in favor is, like, Aries is the cardinal sign, so that's a good time to start a good habit that is not oppressive of others. And for many people, it's simply, if you've been asking yourself, what the heck happened in the world? Why does it look like we are decentralizing a mountain is because we are.